You know, we are completely surrounded by this hidden world of incredibly complex life. It's everywhere. It's in the fungus that helps make our bread, the mold that creates life-saving medicine, and even in these tiny parasites we can't even see. They're all part of a group called eukaryotes, and in this explainer, we are going to crack open their cellular blueprint.
But first, let's kick things off with a quick question to get the gears turning. Think about protozoa for a second. Those little single-celled critters you probably heard about in biology class. So, is it true or false that the main way scientists tell them apart is by how they get around? If you said true, you are absolutely right. How they move, whether they're crawling or swimming with a little whip-like tail or using tiny hairs, is a huge part of their identity. And that one little fact is the perfect doorway into the incredible complexity we're about to dive into with our eukaryotic cousins.
Okay, so let's start with that blueprint. All complex life, and I mean everything from a mushroom to you and me, is built from this one specific type of cell. It's called a eukaryotic cell, and it is worlds apart from simpler life forms like bacteria.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine a simple bacterium, that's a prokaryote, is like a tiny workshop. You know, just one big open room where everything happens all at once. But a eukaryote? Oh, that's like a whole bustling city with specialized buildings and different departments, and each one has a very specific job to do. And those buildings, in our little city analogy, well, they have a name, organelles. The name literally means little organs, and that's exactly what they are. Each one is wrapped up in its own membrane doing its own thing. One generates energy, another produces proteins, another takes out the trash. It's this amazing internal organization that's the real secret to their success. So, to really get a handle on what all this complexity actually allows them to do, we're going to open up a few case files on some of the most impactful eukaryotes out there: the fungi, the protozoa, and the helminths.
First up, case file number 1, fungi. And wow, these organisms have a truly dramatic, kind of Jekyll and Hyde relationship with us. They are both some of our greatest allies and sometimes our most frustrating enemies.
I mean, on the friends side of things, we owe them big time. They're nature's recycling crew, the master decomposers. And we've figured out how to harness their power to create everything from the penicillin that totally changed medicine to the yeast that makes our bread fluffy and our beer bubbly. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's a flip side. Fungi can also be really tough foes. When they decide to set up shop on or in us, the infections, which we call mycoses, can be anything from just annoying to, in some cases, life-threatening.
And this distinction is really key. Some fungi are what we call primary pathogens. They can make a perfectly healthy person sick. But a lot of them are opportunistic. A perfect example is Candida albicans. It lives on most of us pretty harmlessly. But if your immune system gets weak for some reason, it sees its chance and causes infections like candidiasis, what most people know as a yeast infection.
All right, moving on to our second case file, the protozoa. Now, if fungi showed us this good and evil duality, protozoa are here to show us what a genius for survival looks like. And their secret weapon? It's this incredible two-stage life cycle.
Think of this as their superpower. In the first stage, the trophozoid stage, they're active, they're feeding, moving, making more of themselves, and, well, making their host sick. But when things get tough, they pull off this amazing trick. They transform into a cyst. This is a dormant, super protected little package that can survive almost anything outside of a host, just waiting for a chance to become infectious again.
And this brilliant survival strategy is what lets them cause some of the world's most infamous diseases, right? Plasmodium uses a mosquito as a taxi service to cause malaria. Giardia forms those tough little cysts that can pollute entire water supplies. And Trypanosoma catches a ride on the tsetse fly, causing the devastating African sleeping sickness. Okay, for our final case file, we're going to scale things up. We're moving from the microscopic to something a bit bigger. Let's talk about the helminths, or as you probably know them, parasitic worms. And yep, they live inside other animals, including us. 35 centimeters. That's about 14 inches. Just take a second and picture that. That is how long a single giant roundworm, Ascaris lumbricoides, can get while living inside a person's intestine.
So these invaders come in two main flavors. You've got your flatworms, which, like the name says, are flat, sometimes like a ribbon, think tapeworms. And then you have the roundworms, or nematodes, which have these long tubular bodies, like that giant Ascaris we were just talking about.
Now, to make this really hit home, let's talk about the single most common worm infection in humans, pinworms.
The life cycle is actually shockingly simple. The female worm literally travels to the anus at night to lay her eggs. This causes the main symptom, which is, you guessed it, intense itching. It's a simple but brutally effective way to survive and get transmitted.
And you might be wondering, how do these things even get inside us? Well, there are three main pathways. We can eat eggs or larvae in contaminated food or water. That's how you get tapeworms from undercooked pork. We can get bitten by an insect carrying them, like the black flies that transmit river blindness. Or in some pretty terrifying cases, the larvae can just burrow right through your bare skin if you're in contaminated water.
So, we've looked at fungi, protozoa, and helminths, three wildly different groups of organisms, right? But they all share that one thing in common, the eukaryotic advantage. Now that we've seen them in action, we can really appreciate what that actually means.
Look, the whole story is right here in this comparison. Eukaryotes have a protected nucleus for their DNA, and all those specialized organelles to handle complex jobs. Think about it. That's what lets a fungus run a tiny antibiotic factory inside itself. It's what allows a protozoan to execute that two-stage survival plan. Even the way they divide, mitosis, is more complex and allows for more complex life than the simple splitting that bacteria do.
And this quote just nails it. The complexity is the point. All that internal machinery, the organelles, the systems, it isn't just a random biological detail. It is the engine that drives everything they do, allowing for everything from decomposition to pure deception.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? We've just barely scratched the surface of this unbelievably complex world that's living right alongside us, and a lot of the time, inside of us. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If this much complexity is thriving, totally unseen all around us, what else are we missing?